The year 1884 marked a turning point in African history. European powers met in Berlin, Germany for the Berlin Conference. The conference aimed to regulate European colonization and trade in Africa. It formalized the scramble for Africa. Angola, with its vast resources and strategic location, became a target for Portuguese ambitions. Portugal had maintained a presence in Angola since the 16th century. However, their control was largely limited to coastal areas. The Berlin Conference gave Portugal a mandate to extend its control over the Angolan interior. This led to a period of intense military campaigns and subjugation of local populations. The Portuguese employed brutal tactics to consolidate their control. They faced fierce resistance from various Angolan communities. Portugal's colonization of Angola was driven by economic interests. The country possessed abundant natural resources, including diamonds, oil, and fertile land. The Portuguese saw an opportunity to exploit these resources for their benefit. They established large-scale plantations focused on cash crops like coffee, cotton, and sugarcane. Despite resistance, Portugal succeeded in establishing a colonial administration in Angola, imposing their laws, language, and culture on the indigenous population. The scramble for Africa dramatically reshaped the continent's political landscape. Portugal, with its long-standing presence in Angola, sought to solidify and expand its control over the territory. The Berlin Conference provided a veneer of international legitimacy to Portugal's ambitions. Driven by economic and political motivations, Portugal embarked on military campaigns to subdue resistant Angolan communities. Portuguese colonial official, the Portuguese forces, often employing superior weaponry and brutal tactics, gradually extended their reach into the interior. They encountered fierce resistance from various ethnic groups, including the Congo, Mbundu, and Ovimbundu. To facilitate their colonial administration, the Portuguese established a hierarchical system of governance. They installed Portuguese officials at all levels of government, effectively excluding Angolans from positions of power. The Portuguese administration established a system of forced labor, compelling Angolans to work on plantations and infrastructure projects. This exploitation of Angolan labor fueled the colonial economy, enriching Portugal while perpetuating the impoverishment of the indigenous population. The Portuguese colonial economy in Angola centered around the exploitation of the region's natural resources and the forced labor of its indigenous population. Vast plantations, primarily producing cash crops for export to European markets, became the backbone of this extractive system. Coffee, cotton, sugarcane, and sisal were among the primary crops cultivated on these plantations. To maximize profits, the Portuguese administration implemented a brutal system of forced labor. Angolans, often forcibly removed from their villages and families, were subjected to harsh working conditions, meager rations, and brutal punishments. Despite the oppressive conditions, Angolans resisted colonial rule in various ways. Some communities engaged in open rebellion, launching attacks on colonial outposts and plantations. Others resorted to acts of sabotage, slowing down work on plantations or damaging crops. Religious leaders often played a crucial role in mobilizing resistance, using their influence to rally communities against colonial oppression. The resilience and resistance of the Angolan people demonstrated their unwavering determination to reclaim their freedom and autonomy. The World Wars had a profound impact on Angola, exacerbating existing social and economic inequalities while simultaneously fueling the growth of Angolan nationalism. During World War I, Portugal, despite its official neutrality, allowed its colonies, including Angola, to be used as sources of raw materials and manpower for the Allied war effort. Angolan men were forcibly conscripted into the Portuguese army and sent to fight in distant battlefields. World War II witnessed a similar pattern of exploitation, with Portugal again remaining officially neutral while providing material support to the Allies. Angolan resources, particularly rubber, diamonds and coffee, were in high demand to support the war effort. Many Angolan soldiers who served in Europe during the World Wars returned with a new awareness of the injustices of colonial rule and a growing desire for independence. Section 5. The rise of independence movements. The mid-20th century witnessed a global wave of decolonization.
Angola experienced a surge in nationalist sentiment, with various independence movements emerging to challenge Portuguese colonial rule.
These movements drew inspiration from the successes of independence struggles in other African nations.
One of the most prominent independence movements was the Movimento Popular de Libertação de Angola, or MPLA, founded in 1956. The MPLA advocated for a socialist revolution in Angola.
They garnered support from a diverse range of Angolans, including intellectuals, urban workers, and rural peasants.
Another influential movement was the Frente Nacional de Libertação de Angola, or FNLA, formed in 1962. The FNLA drew support primarily from the Bakongo ethnic group in northern Angola.
The rise of these independence movements marked a turning point in Angola's struggle against colonial rule. Section 6. The Angolan War of Independence, a protracted and bloody conflict that lasted for over a decade, erupted in 1961. The war pitted the Portuguese colonial government against a coalition of Angolan independence movements.
The war was characterized by guerrilla warfare, with Angolan rebels launching attacks on Portuguese military installations, plantations, and infrastructure.
The MPLA, led by Agostinho Neto, established its base of operations in eastern Angola, receiving support from the Soviet Union and Cuba.
The FNLA, under the leadership of Holden Roberto, operated primarily in the north, receiving backing from the United States and Zaire.
The war resulted in widespread human rights abuses, displacement, and a devastating loss of life. Section 7. Civil War and Cold War Politics. The Angolan War of Independence came to an abrupt end in 1974 with the Carnation Revolution in Portugal. The new government in Lisbon quickly moved to grant independence to Angola. However, the end of Portuguese colonialism did not bring peace to Angola. Instead, the country plunged into a brutal civil war as the three main independence movements, the MPLA, FNLA, and UNITA, turned on each other.
The Civil War, which lasted for over 27 years, was marked by extreme violence and a devastating impact on Angola's people and infrastructure. The MPLA, with its Marxist-Leninist ideology, received substantial military and financial support from the Soviet Union and Cuba. The United States, fearing the spread of communism in southern Africa, backed the FNLA and UNITA, providing them with weapons, training, and funding.
Section 8. Peace and Reconstruction. After decades of brutal civil war, Angola finally achieved peace in 2002. The death of UNITA leader Jonas Savimbi paved the way for a ceasefire agreement and the eventual integration of UNITA rebels into the Angolan army and government.
The end of the war marked a turning point in Angola's history, offering a glimmer of hope for a more peaceful and prosperous future. The post-war period witnessed a massive effort to rebuild the country's shattered infrastructure and institutions. Roads, bridges, schools, and hospitals destroyed during the war were rebuilt with the help of international donors. Despite the challenges, Angola made significant progress in the years following the war.
Section 9. Economic Growth and Modern Challenges. Following the end of the Civil War, Angola experienced a period of remarkable economic growth, largely driven by its vast oil reserves. The country became a major oil producer, with oil exports accounting for a significant portion of its GDP.
This economic boom led to improvements in infrastructure, healthcare, and education, but it also exacerbated existing inequalities and created new challenges. Corruption became a major issue as government officials and their cronies siphoned off oil revenues for personal gain. The government's over-reliance on oil revenue also made the economy vulnerable to fluctuations in global oil prices. Recognizing the need to diversify its economy, the Angolan government implemented measures to promote investment in other sectors, such as agriculture, mining, and tourism.
Section 10. Angola in the 21st century. Recent developments and future prospects. In the 21st century, Angola has continued to grapple with the legacy of its tumultuous past while navigating the challenges of a rapidly changing world. The country has made strides in economic diversification, investing in infrastructure, agriculture, and renewable energy.
However, corruption, poverty, and social inequality remain significant obstacles to progress. Angola has also taken on a more prominent role in regional and international affairs. It has played an active role in mediating conflicts in neighboring countries, such as the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Central African Republic. As Angola looks to the future, it faces both opportunities and challenges, with the potential to become a major economic and political power in Africa.